Hey everyone, I'm Sam Haymart and you're watching Test Driven TV. The Subaru Forester is a vehicle that we have tested a number of times before. It's an old favorite here at Test Driven TV, but the big news today is that the Wilderness trim grade is back from its hiatus in the 2025 model year, and it's improved top to bottom. So we're gonna have a good look at it inside and out. We're gonna take it for a drive, and then I'm gonna tell you what I really think. All right, my good friends, let's have a look at the vehicle that Subaru has given us to test drive today. This is, of course, the 2026 Forester, and this is the Wilderness trim grade, the trim grade right in the middle that gives you extra off-road capability, it gives you off-road looks, and it gives you off-road features inside and out as well as out there for the drive. And we're going to talk about all of that. But first, let's back up a step and talk about the Forester itself. It got a comprehensive update in 2025, moving from the 5th generation to the 6th generation. And that means styling changes that I think make this one of the most handsome looking Foresters yet. It's got new headlights, new grille designs. It's got new wheel designs and new trims all across the board, which make it sharper, a little bit more bold. And when we get to the Wilderness trim grade, dare I say it, masculine? Can I say that word? Is that okay? As tested, we're about $42,000 on this one. This has a $2,200 option package on it, which enhances a number of things, but primarily the infotainment system and the audio, a number of other little details, but you can get this down around 40-ish. Of course, the Forester starts out base model around 30, then goes up to well over where we're at right now if you go up into the higher trim grades. Looking at what you get with the Wilderness, this is really about increased off-road capability. It's about being more durable out here in the rough and really sort of bringing the looks to go with it. When we talk about the styling differences, let's look right up front. On the hood is a big flat black applique. Not only gives it kind of a cooler look, but that actually has a practical application for reflection when you're out driving off-road and you're trying to navigate. That helps reduce the glare a little bit. Down in the bumper, big black bumper, unique design for the Wilderness. You can see some hex driving lights down there in that bumper. On the front bumper, you'll see those gold anodized design details. Those are actually covers that when you pop those off, reveal tow hooks up front. Of course, the LED lighting, that is, of course, new for this generation. And coming around the side, you can see some unique tires and wheels, 17-inch alloy wheels. And this has a pretty nice tire upgrade. Yokohama Geolandar all-terrain tires. If you look at these online, they cost some money. These are not a cheap manufacturer spec tire. These are an upgrade if you're out there looking for tires for your own vehicle. Some of the other details that you will see here, of course, badging up on the fender. You have a larger, bolder design for the wheel arches, and they're squared off, which is kind of cool looking. But look at this big piece of rocker trim down at the bottom of the doors. Not only is it bolder, tougher looking, but it's got that nice little anodized design element right there that says Forester. The big news, though, is the ground clearance. When you step up to the Subaru Wilderness, you get an increased ground clearance of 9.3 inches. That is not only more than other Forester models in the lineup, but it's more than the previous generation Wilderness Forester, 9.3 inches. And more important than that, you can see under there is a big aluminum skid plate, and that is to protect that engine and drivetrain from getting not only dirt and rocks and other things kicked up into there, but if you happen to go over terrain and it's getting up against the bottom of the car, it helps keep it from causing any damage. And that's the real deal. That is not a fake design element like some crossover SUVs are giving us that's essentially plastic painted silver. That is real metal. And looking at the rear suspension, you can see that very much like the front, Subaru has gone to a lot of work to make sure that there are not a lot of things sticking down and dropping down at the bottom of this car to not only get away from its ground clearance numbers, but that would actually cause harm if you were actually truly off-roading and you happen to high center this and go over rocks and anything that might be in your path. This is something that Subaru's been doing for a very long time. One of the very first all-wheel drive cars and compact crossover SUV vehicles. They've got the experience, they know what to do, what not to do, and so when you see underneath this car, there's just not a lot going on under there that's going to get you in trouble if you're out truly seriously off-roading, which you can do here. Looking at the bumper and some of the styling elements, you'll see that this does have the same treatments that we saw up front. The anodized covers there in the bumper, those have actual hooks behind them that you can use to pull this out of the ditch. And that bumper is also designed for maximum departure angle. So if you are truly off-roading out there, you can take this into some tighter spots than you might otherwise try. The rear roof line, very akin to the Forester design DNA. You can see this from across the parking lot and say, yep, that is a Subaru Forester just by looking at it. But I want to point out the roof rack up at the top before we get to the interior. Not only is it detailed with the anodized accents, but this is designed to hold 800 pounds. Think about that, 800 pounds. That is a big tent. That is a big tent, and that is designed to be able to travel down the highway at speed with that big, heavy piece of weight up there, but also be able to support it. And if it can support that, there are any number of other accessories that you can put up there that this is going to be able to handle. That is not just a run-of-the-mill roof rack. That is a heavy-duty unit. The interior of the Forester Wilderness is a place that has a lot of unique features, very much like the exterior. And first of all, just to look at the interior, if you're familiar with Subarus at all, you'll find this very familiar. It is a design that they have been evolving over the last decade or so. It looks like a Subaru, it feels like a Subaru, and yeah, it actually smells like one. Subaru's got its own scent. Sitting here in the Wilderness, this does have a few unique features, and with the redesign in 2025 of the Forester, we've got some higher quality materials. It's a nice looking interior. There are grays and blacks with a copper accent stitching throughout, copper accents. The anodized look from the exterior comes to the interior with a little piece on the steering wheel, threads on the steering wheel, down on the gear shift. There is a accent garnish there. And so it's got a nice handsome look. And looking at the seats, same thing there. These are vinyl seats. Subaru calls it StarTex. They call it a waterproof material, which vinyl would be. And in the headrest, you'll see Subaru Wilderness logos stamped into them. You see the two-tone treatment on the upholstery and some very nice little logos and some stitching that really make them quite nice. And even though they are a plasticky vinyl, I have found in my week with the car that even with a little bit of cool, a little bit of warm, that they're pretty comfortable. I haven't felt like I'm sticking to them like they're sweaty. They're comfortable seats. I do have a power seat on the driver's side. This is a manual seat for the passenger. The steering wheel, nice soft trim steering wheel. It does have paddle shifters, and ahead of me is a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster. There are a number of ways to customize it. Right now you can see I've got the map on there. In the center is a portrait-style touchscreen infotainment system. This has the option package, so it's got the full-blown technology going on this particular car. Even though a lot of people have had some complaints about this portrait-style infotainment system in the Subaru, I like a few things about it that are key. It has a hard volume and tuning knob. It has hard buttons on each side for the temperature, for the climate control, and those are our most used controls, right? There are climate controls built into the touchscreen. They have eliminated all the knobs and buttons for the most part on this interior. Most everything that you're going to do is in this touchscreen. And the good news is, once you learn it, it's well thought out. The graphics are good. It's easy enough to use. The touch response is mostly good, depending on the temperature. As we are optioned here, this has Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. It is wireless, which is great because I love using Apple CarPlay for all of my infotainment needs. This has a full backup camera. Now, it is just a single view backup camera. It does have a forward facing camera with 180-degree view that you can dial up and select if you're doing some off-roading, but it does not have a full 360-degree view like some contemporary crossover SUVs do. Harman Kardon audio back end, it sounds absolutely great. I think probably worth the extra money because it does have the boom, it does have the granularity in its sound quality. The one complaint I really do have about it is that this is a very shiny reflective surface that they've given us. It's not a matte surface. So if you have the sunroof open, if you have light coming in from any angle, there is a lot of glare. In fact, in the shot, so you can probably see my reflection with the camera in it. It is so reflective. But beyond that, this is a system that, while at first I found a little bit off-putting, it's well developed. And once you get the learning curve passed, it's a pretty good system. Above me is a large moonroof. It's larger than a standard moonroof, but it's not a full panoramic roof. It has a sliding cover, and yes, it does open. So you can have that nice open air effect going on. I like the center console design. It's well laid out from a functional point of view. Up in the front, it has a wireless phone charger, and you can turn that on and off depending on whether you want to use it. A lot of plugs for auxiliary and USB and charging. Cup holders off to the side, and if you don't want to use this charger tray, you can also set your phone vertically right here in the charger. That's a nice bonus. I like to be able to see it sometimes if it alerts and I can just take a quick glance. It depends on what your preference, but you can do it both ways with the phone. Deep cup holders, so big gas station cups can sit here, not in the way of the shifter. And inside here, a pretty good level of storage. A little bit larger, I would say 1.5 square tissue boxes worth of volume there. A nice space. We don't have CDs anymore, but you could put lots of CDs in there if we did, but no CD players going on today. Another benefit to the Wilderness trim grade that I really love are these all-weather mats forward to the back. Now, it looks a little bit lived in, and that's by design. I've been living in it for a week as I film this today. I just love the fact that I could get in and out of this in inclement weather, dirty shoes, dirty boots, and not worry about messing up the carpet. This is a wonderful thing. The back seat of the Forester, as you can see, is a very roomy place. These seats are set for my height, about 5'9", with my big boots on. I've got about 4 to 5 inches ahead of my knees as I sit here. So these seats could come back a lot farther with a taller person, and whomever is in the back seat, even an adult, is not going to be cramped and crushed. There's plenty of space back here. The seating height is pretty good. It's not down low. It's not the highest, I would say, but it's a comfortable natural seating position, and the comfort back here is reasonably good. This is set up for 3 across seating, though I think it might be pretty tight for 3 adults. 2, quite comfortable. This does have fold-down armrest and does have cup holders in it. Vents on the back of the center console, along with USB ports, 2 different sizes. Being able to get yourself comfortable back here for most people is going to be an easy thing. Headroom, of course, I've got about 4 inches above my head. These seats are adjustable in that they have an adjustable back rake. They fold down in a 60-40 split, and it's pretty easy. You just press a button back there, and down they go. Pretty nice little feature. When they're down, they give you a reasonably flat load floor. Pretty good cargo space, and because this is a square and boxy profile vehicle, you can put big boxes, big square boxes in this. It's not something with a raked roof line that's going to cut into that. When these seats are up, still a pretty good size cargo space back there, so if you're going camping or on an outing with a bunch of friends or family, you're still going to have plenty of room for gear back there. Underneath that floor, a nice surprise. Not only is there a nice storage spot back there for the pool cover that you can put on that cargo area, you can put that away, but look what's under it. A full-size spare. It is a temporary use spare, but full-size it is, and it has an all-terrain tread. That means you can take this out in the middle of nowhere where maybe there's no cell service. You can do some off-roading. If you cut a tire open on a rock or something like that, you can still go about your business for a period of time without having to put a little mini donut on that's going to really hamper your ability to exist or have to call a tow truck. I love that in a vehicle like this. All right, everybody, let's go for a drive out here in the dirt where we belong. And so under the hood, as expected, isn't anything revolutionary. It's the 2.5 liter horizontally opposed boxer 4-cylinder engine, a Subaru staple. And here it's mated to a continuously variable transmission and Subaru's standard symmetrical all-wheel drive. This has a few differences from the standard Forester lineup, though, that help give it better off-road capability when it comes to traction. It has a revised final drive ratio, a little bit lower, better for crawling. It has a quicker locking mechanism for the all-wheel drive system, and it also has extra cooling, not only for the transmission, but for the rear axle. It has extra drive modes that you can tap into that really help you dial in exactly what you want for different terrain variations. And while A lot of cars have that now. It's always nice when they throw you a few extra variations. The engine has 180 horsepower and 178 pound-feet of torque. And so we're going to come to a complete stop out here. We're out in the middle of nowhere. I always like to ask the question, how does it go? So again, nobody around. We're not in anyone's way. And go. It's a CVT. It's kind of making its noise. And 60. So that is one of the things with a continuously variable transmission, is that usually under full steam, it will just get up to an RPM level and stay there. Drone on, somebody would say. Not my favorite transmission combination, but Subaru has made it work very well. And yes, they do have paddle shifters here that enable you to have simulated shift points so that you can have some control over the ratio that's going on, as well as just play with it and have some fun and feel like you have a more traditional transmission. So it's a nice bone to throw those of us drivers who like to feel like they're getting shifts. But mostly driving every day, it's going to be a continuously variable transmission in its truest form. As far as noise, Subaru engines have their own character and sound, and you heard it. It's just something that Subaru customers have come to like, and it makes it quite unique. Now, fuel economy, we are in a heavier vehicle here with this smaller engine. It's rated at 24 miles per gallon city, 28 highway, and 26 mpg combined. In my week with it, I've seen about 25, 26, but we're in that tween weather here in Arizona, which means I've been seeing both hot days and cold days. So I've been some days with the heater on and the heated seats, other days like right now, this minute, I'm dressed for winter, but I could almost use the air conditioner. And it's just kind of like that in December. I know, terrible thing, right? Overall, I find this powertrain to be pretty satisfying in the respect that it just behaves pretty well from day to day. It's got all the power you need, and with all of these extra drive modes and traction extras that this has, this is a powertrain that's going to be your friend when you're out doing the off-roading, camping, and things like that. So good. Now we're going to talk about ride, drive, and handling. This does have extra ground clearance, which means it sits up a little bit higher, and then therefore center of gravity is a little higher, so it does feel more like an SUV from behind the wheel. You feel the fact that you're sitting up a little bit higher, and going down the road with these Geolander all-terrain tires, they do make a little bit of noise. They don't drone, but we're out here on my favorite back road, which does have pretty noisy pavement. It's a rough pavement, so you can hear it, and we can definitely hear it inside. Subaru has never been a quiet interior compared to some of the competitors. It's not a rubber room. It's not a padded cell. You can hear the road. Wind noise, though, is pretty low, but the good news is that even though we do have a higher center of gravity, you can throw this into a corner, and it's got good roll stiffness. It does have a pretty firm ride, even though this is really dialed in for off-road with this trim grade, the taller springs, the taller struts, and the off-road tune. It's not mushy and marshmallowy like some off-road suspensions are. It still has that on-road capability and confidence level that you want. And that's good, because most of the time when you're going to the dirt, you're driving on pavement. So you can toss it into a corner and it's going to be good. Cattle guard. And that gets us to the around town driving experience, because most people are going to spend their life on the pavement, right? In the city where I live, there are potholes, there are railroad tracks, there are speed humps, those things in your neighborhood to keep you from going too fast. This has a pretty solid feel over all of those. It doesn't ever get to a point where it feels harsh or junky, which is a good thing. Sam doesn't like that. I like a car that feels like quality, and this certainly does. But we're on the pavement. My question with a vehicle like this is, how does it handle off the pavement? So here we are, driving into the sun, as you can see on screen. I apologize for the glare. But how does this drive out in the dirt on the desert washboard road? And whenever I get the opportunity, I love to take an SUV out here, because this surface, even though it's not really hardcore off-roading, this vibrating ribbed washboard surface can really make even some of the best vehicles out there feel like a total pile of junk. And it really tells us a lot about the suspension tuning. It tells us how well bolted together this is. And what I can tell you is that it feels pretty solid. Yes, you're hearing some rattling and a little bit of resonation. Another cattle guard. You're hearing some resonation and rattling around in the interior, and that is something that I have found with Subarus. Like I said earlier, Subaru does not make you feel like you're in a padded cell. You feel the road, you hear the noise, and we can feel every bit of texture that we're driving over here. So it's not really isolating you like some vehicles do, where you feel like you're driving over a marshmallow even though it's rough out there. But the good news is that the chassis has a good feel to it, and with the stability control out here on gravel and loose surfaces like this, you can go around corners at a reasonable level of speed, and that stability control is going to arrest any types of spin or yaw that are going to try to happen. It can overcome the laws of physics if you really get yourself in trouble, but you can confidently go down a relatively slippery road like this, and it's going to take care to try to keep you going in a straight line. So that's a good thing. So it feels like a tough enough vehicle out here in the dirt, which is what we want when we're spending up for that. And lastly, I would tell you that these Geolandar tires, they do have some extra traction and bite that you can feel. So that's great. Yeah. So if you drive out in places like this more often than not, I would tell you that if you're going to get a Subaru Forester, or really any Subaru, if you spend your time out here, I highly recommend choosing the Wilderness trim grade, because while this is a ride that you can feel and you can hear, it is the best of the best in the Subaru lineup because of the tall tires, the extra rubber, and the off-road capabilities. If you get any of the other trim grades, it's not quite as comfortable out here in the rough. It does a good job, but this is the best way to go. So yeah. All right, everybody, we have had a great look at it inside and out. We've talked about all of the features that makes the Wilderness trim grade of the Forester unique, and we've taken it for a drive, and we talked about that as well. So the first thing I've got to tell you about this vehicle is look at the license plate, if we haven't already talked about it. I love the fact that Illinois has some brightly colored manufacturer plates. Every time we get a Subaru who exclusively uses Illinois for their plating, it's always a different color. Sometimes it's teal, sometimes it's orange, it's gold. It's always fascinating. It's like a novelty when they tell me I'm getting a Subaru to see what's going to be the next color license plate they hand me. This is a two-tone pink. It gets attention. People always point that out. They go, what's that? And so that's just, I wanted to point that out. So the next thing I would tell you about the Forester Wilderness is that I'm one of those car guys. I always want to have what I cannot get. And I tested the Forester Hybrid last year and loved it. Loved the powertrain. It was a nice way to get a pretty good size crossover SUV and get great fuel economy with all of the Subaruisms, right? The Subaru driving character, the symmetrical all-wheel drive, the boxer engine, all of the things that Subaru customers love, only with mid-30s for fuel economy. But I want that, and I want the Wilderness trim grade, and you can't have them both. You have to choose one or the other. That's what I want. But alas, back in the early 2000s, I wanted a diesel car with a 5-speed transmission or a 6-speed, and you could rarely get that anywhere. So that said, let's look at what we do have and be glad for it. I do like the Wilderness trim grade in the Subaru, and wonderfully, they offer it across almost the entire lineup right now. You can get a Wilderness in the Crosstrek, so if it's a little bit big for you, you can go down. You can get it up in the Outback as well. So if you have a little bit more money to spend, you can go up, get a larger vehicle. Here, as we've talked about, we're at about $42K with the option package this has. You can get it down about $2,200 if you skip the option package with the extra infotainment features. So there's a couple ways to go here, but this is generally the ballpark where we are at. Not a lot of competitors direct to this. This is kind of a unique unicorn of sorts because of its size, its shape, its configuration. There are other in the same price range crossover SUVs that you can compare this to, almost apples to apples, but it's kind of its own animal in a lot of ways. And if you're a Subaru customer, you know what I'm talking about. It's a Subaru. That's just how it is. But I like the redesign. I think this is one of the best looking Foresters yet in terms of the styling and the details. I really like what they've done here to essentially evolve the previous generation. This being the 5th generation, not a lot different in form. a lot of just detailed differences. And with all of the extra capability that has been added for the 26 Wilderness over the previous generation Wilderness, I think it's worth a step up. So if you've got a 23 or a 24 and maybe you like the Wilderness, this is a pretty big step up in capability just over that same trim grade from before, with the extra ground clearance, the extra traction capabilities, and so forth. So that's where I am on the Forester Wilderness. Yeah. So if you like what we do, you can see our latest video right there. Better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can do that right down there. Either way, stay tuned.